Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a meeting of the Southfield City Council being held committee of the whole for Tuesday, November 12th. Ms. Banks, would you please call the roll?
Thank you. Mr. Patasi? Here. Mr. Frazier?
Here.
Ms. Williams? Mr. Lamb? Here. Ms. Seymour? And Mr. Simon?
Here.
With 6 members present.
Okay. Ms. Banks, the first item on our agenda is yours, and this is a transfer of a liquor license within existing facility.
That's correct. The request before you is just a simple transfer of the corporate owner from WPS CY Detroit LLC doing business as the Courtyard of Marriott to WPS, no. Yes, am I saying that right? WPS, I'm sorry, CY Detroit LLC. They're located on the Northwestern Service Drive. All the paperwork has been completed from the various departments. Everything has been paid. They have responded to any building requests or violations that were had. The attorney, Cindy Cotter, is present this evening, along with, I believe, the manager of the courtyard. If the council has any questions. We're recommending a Rule 10. They have been very cooperative in the whole process. Anything we've asked them to do, they've done immediately. It warrants approval this evening of the honorable body.
Is there any questions from council of the petitioner? Mr. Frazier?
Yeah, I was reading this material, and the letter from Dacoma says our state application package was filed with the Michigan Liquor Control Commission on Monday, February the 29th, 2013. I couldn't find a Monday, February 29th on my calendar. So I don't know when it was filed.
The application.
Yeah.
April 29th, I apologize.
April 29th?
My application to the state.
Oh. I was going to say there are only two other Monday, 29th, April and July. So, other than that, I don't have a problem.
Mr. Chairman, I move by Rule 10.
All right.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Perkowski, supported by Mr. Moss. All those in favor of a Rule 10?
Aye.
Now we need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the liquor license request of WPS CY Detroit LLC doing business as Courtyard by Marriott be approved.
Support.
Been moved by Mr. Frazier, supported by Mr.
The other way around.
Mr. Perkowski, supported by Mr. Frazier. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. You're done.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
We
thank you.
appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
So it was great working with you.
Thank you. Same here.
All right. Next, we're going to go on to authorization to lease an unmarked surveillance vehicle for police task force, and this is the chief's item. Chief?
Good evening. Good evening, council, city officials, members of the community. Back in August, I came before this honorable body and received support from council for the police department to enter into partnerships with the Federal Bureau of Investigations and the Secret Service, United States Secret Service. And this evening I come before you to ask for authorization and approval to lease a vehicle for the officer that is assigned to the United States Secret Service Financial Crimes Task Force. And as council recalls, the partnership with the FBI entails allocation of office space for the Southeast Michigan Crimes Against Children Task Force. So whenever they are performing their operational details, they will use the city of Southfield as the home base for those details. And the partnership with the Secret Service entailed an officer or a detective that is assigned to a task force that is housed out in the Novi Police Department. And so tonight I'm asking for authorization to lease a vehicle for that officer that is assigned to the task force in Novi, the Financial Crimes Task Force. That vehicle will be used for covert operations, mostly mobile surveillance. And the cost involved in this lease arrangement will be 100% reimbursed by the United States Secret Service. So there will be no direct net cost to the city of Southfield for this lease arrangement. So I ask for City Council's approval to enter into a lease agreement for this purpose.
Mr. Lance?
Chief,
Yes.
where is the task force going to meet? In your office?
No, Councilman Lasky, I don't have enough space in my office for it, but they meet, the actual Southeast the Financial Crimes Task Force actually meets in Novi. And they've allocated space for, I think there's 13 agencies now involved in this task force, everybody from federal, state, county, and local agencies there. Now, in our department, space is allocated to the FBI for the Southeast Michigan Crimes Against Children Task Force. And that's an office, and they keep all their equipment there. And I mean, again, when they have their operational details, they'll use this as a base of operations to assist the city of Southfield.
Mr. Frazier, you're next.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One is, I know the lease of the car is going to be picked up by the Secret Service.
Yes.
What about the fuel, the maintenance?
Fuel and maintenance will be handled by the city of Southfield. But that is not, there will be no additional cost in the long run, because had we not gotten this car from the Secret Service, the lease itself, then that officer, that detective would have used a department car anyway, and would have used that vehicle for all of the operations and all of his daily operations anyway. So.
Now, he's housed out at the Novi?
Yes.
Is this a take-home car, or is this only, he drives his own car to work and picks this up?
This is the take-home car, yes. And with rationale, this task force, they operate at all different types of hours. And also, whenever there is any type of call-outs, unexpected type call-outs, then the officers from this task force are all called in, at all times of the day or night, or whenever it is. So that's the rationale for these officers. Every officer in that task force having a take-home car. And that's typical for task force officers across the country. That's not unusual at all.
Is that considered a fringe benefit? Because he drives the car back and forth to work?
If he's on duty, how could it be a fringe benefit?
Pardon me?
How could
Because
it
the
be?
IRS doesn't allow people to drive a car back and forth to work. When you go to
a special,
okay. But his work location is Novi, it's not his house.
Mr. Fraser, I would have to research that. I would have to research that and get back to you, because I would just be speculating on the answer to that.
I believe there's an exclusion for that,
Okay.
but we will do the homework.
Okay. All right, that's it.
Any other questions from the council? The chief is asking for a Rule 10 on this evening.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Support?
It's been moved by Mr. McCarthy, supported by Mr. Frazier, for the immediate need to act. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I move that we approve the offer of the unmarked surveillance vehicle for the police task force being reimbursed by the United States Secret Service.
Any support?
Support.
Moved by Mr. Frazier, supported by Mr. McCarthy. Any other comment? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
We have your lease. All right. Next, we move on to the request by the owner of Harvard Plaza to property, owner of Harvard Plaza, to modify the deed restriction. I'm turning this over to our city attorney.
If I could just introduce the topic, Jerry Patrick is the attorney for the owner of the property at Harvard Plaza, and he has a presentation he'd like to make. As I indicated in my letter, basically, this is a situation where the property that's owned by Harvard Plaza is encumbered presently with private deed restrictions. those private deed restrictions limit the use of that property to residential and office. It does not allow a commercial use. This property is fronting on Southfield Road. The owner would like to pursue commercial development on that piece. And so, because the deed restrictions don't allow him to do that, he looked at the deed restrictions themselves, and it allows for amendments so long as 2/3 of the property owners in that subdivision agree. And it so happens that the city owns 3 lots in that subdivision. And so the attorney is here to ask the city tonight to vote our 3 lots in favor of allowing a commercial use on this piece of property fronting Southfield. Just to clarify as well, this does not rezone the property. This does not approve it for a commercial use. They would still, if the 2/3 of the property owner approval is met, they would still have to come through for a rezoning. They would have to come through for site plan, potentially a special use, depending on what they wanted to do. So all this does is request the city to vote approval of its 3 lots in favor of allowing a commercial use on this property. So with that, obviously, if Mr. Patrick had some remarks.
Good evening. Good evening. Mr. Patrick, you've been before us many times before. You know the drill. Your name and business address for the record.
Jerry Pesic, 380 North Old Woodward, Birmingham. Good evening, everybody. I think sometime ago I had the opportunity to either be in front of all of you or meet all of you, but I'm Jerry Pesic for those of you who I haven't. This is an unusual situation, to be honest with you, and I've been doing this for a long time. And I hope you all can see it, but this is the Bedford Villas #2 subdivision. This is 12 Mile Road. This is Southfield. There's a gas station on the corner here that I think you're all familiar with, and this parcel wrapping around the corner is where the old Federal Hardware building is located. And I still call it Federal Hardware building from when I was a kid. I represent the Harvard Plaza Limited Partnership, which is located at 29350 Southfield Road. Harvard Plaza owns these 2 lots right here, lot 119 and lot 120. And it's the corner of this, which is marked as Reed Road on the old plan, is actually Edwards Road, which I think you're all familiar with up in that location. The situation that we have is, in 1944, the entire subdivision had a deed restriction imposed on it, restricting it to residential use only, with the exception of parcel 111 and 110 at the corner here, which has had a gas station for a long time, and of course with the Federal Hardware and whatever, some commercial development wrapping around that gas station. In 1960, the deed restriction was relaxed somewhat so that everyone on Southfield Road and everyone on 12 Mile Road could either use it for residential or office purposes. 118 and 119, which is owned by Harvard Plaza, you all may recall, had an office building on it for many years. That office building burned down about 3 or 4 years ago. The owner has been seeking opportunities to redevelop the property over the course of the last 3 or 4 years since the property burned down, since the building burned down. And candidly, there's been no interest whatsoever in any kind of office development. There has been a number of parties who have had interest in commercial development of the property, but as soon as they've gotten the title work and seen that this residential deed restriction was in place, they basically got scared away. In fact, there was one that that approached the various neighbors in the neighborhood and had a meeting and attempted to get some interest in lifting the restriction, and gave up kind of at an early stage. I was approached by the ownership and asked for a solution to this matter. I indicated it's difficult, that there are 2 significant problems. One, of course, is the deed restriction. And I wouldn't necessarily call it a problem like the deed restriction, but even if you get the deed restriction lifted, you've got to go back to the city to get the property rezoned, get your site plan approval, all those sorts of things. We felt it made the most sense to work on the deed restriction first, because there's no point in coming before you to try and get rezoning and approval of a development if you still have that deed restriction staring us in the face. What we have done is we have, up to this point, been in contact with all of the commercial and office property owners on 12 Mile Road, on Southfield Road. We've gotten a very good response from them. The great majority have either signed off or committed to a sign-off. There are a few that are difficult. One ownership in particular is in California. We've been having some difficulty getting a hold of them. Another ownership has just been non-communicative. But we feel that we're ready to take the next step in our process, which is to now approach all the residential lot owners to see if we can get approval from them and reach our two-thirds majority. You're the first residential lot owner that we decided to approach. We felt that would first come to the city, see if we get the support of the city. That would make a lot of sense to do that before we went on to the individual homeowners. Again, I want to emphasize what Sue had said, which is this does not give up any regulatory control that the city has on the property if you vote in favor of lifting this restrictions. We still have to come back to you if we get to that point to get the property rezoned, to get any sort of development approved, and any other regulatory requirements that need to be fulfilled. So with all of that in mind, I'm here to ask on behalf of the property owners that you respectfully that you approve the request to vote your 3 lots in favor of lifting the deed restriction.
Mr. Patrick, could you point out on your chart there, the 3 lots that the city controls
Yeah,
for the council?
I'm sorry, Mr. Secretary. It's lots 140, 141, 142.
Which are part of Bedford Woods Park.
It's a part of that. Yes, that's correct. Any other questions?
And what are the other ones that you want?
I'm
All
sorry.
of the others are the ones you want?
Well, we need 2/3 of the whole. There's 41 lots in total, so we need 28. I think we're right now at 16, and we haven't even approached the residential.
Well, so the undeveloped part is north of Webster,
I'm sorry.
and the park is the commercial park, but you have to have a surrounding area.
Well, this is the whole subdivision, and we need 28 of the 41 lot owners to vote in favor of lifting the restrictions in order to have it done through a voluntary process as provided for in the original deed restriction that was put in place in 1944.
Mr.
All right,
Seibert?
you're first, Ms.
Thank
Seymour.
you.
Go ahead.
My concern with having the city first is that indicates to the residents and others that we're in favor of it. And I see no reason why, if someone is interested, they couldn't come in and talk to us. You know, they can offer on a contingency basis that we would find this development something that we thought was satisfactory. The argument that there aren't any offices being built, if it's a good development, and we thought it was appropriate and the people liked it, it would get approved. But to come in and say, let's change this and let's be the first ones to give up this, give our approval, that to me sends a message to the rest of the residents, and commercial and/or residents, that we approve it, and I think that's a bad precedent. Anyone that's really interested, this is really to help the owner. The owner wants to sell the property. He wants to make it easy to sell it. If anyone is interested in the property with an appropriate development, they should come to the city, talk to us at that point. I just think we're paving the way to make this convenient for an owner, and I don't think it's in the best interest of the city to do, and certainly we should not be the first one. That's my opinion.
Anything else, Ms. Seymour? Then it's Mr. Lance.
Probably, but I'll leave.
Okay, Mr. Lance?
What type of commercial is seeking?
We don't have a specific use at this point.
And do we have a blank check to?
Well, it's not a blank check because we're only voting to allow the possibility, we're only asking you to vote to allow the possibility of commercial development. Rezoning still would have to come before you, and ultimately the specific development would still have to come before you. The problem, candidly, and the owner has been working on this for 3 or 4 years, for better or for worse, there has been no interest in office development. There has been interest in commercial, but as soon as the prospective developer...
What is commercial? Describe commercial.
Commercial could be residential, commercial could be a strip center of some sort, any sort of retail, a business use other than office. It's possible, certainly, but that would be something that would be presented, but again, you would have the authority to review all that. So the problem is that any prospective purchaser, and there have been interest, when they see the restriction, they're moving on to the next parcel that doesn't have that restriction. So as long as that restriction is in place, there's a great inhibiting factor there that precludes any kind of development of that redevelopment of this property. Any other
Mr.
questions?
Fraser, is done, Mr. Levan? Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, then Mr. Fraser's next, and then Mr. Moss.
Yeah, I have a question. You said that you need 28 votes.
Lot owners, so 28 owners.
What happens if the lot owner, if the husband and wife and both of their names are on the deed? And one votes yes and one votes no.
Then we don't have a vote.
So it's, you have to ask both of the people of interest if there's, both names are on the deed.
It's even a little bit more complicated than that with some of the residential. The answer to your question is yes, but actually, we have situations, particularly on 12 Mile, where the lots, half of a lot is owned by one business owner and half of a lot is owned by another. So by way of example, in addition to the 16 commitments we have, I have 3 partial commitments. And so, I think I mentioned to you, I have one in California that's been a little difficult to communicate with. That particular owner has 3 partial lots and 2 whole lots. So he's a very, very significant player in this thing, and I've been trying very hard to make the right contact. I thought I had found the person here, and it turned out who was the owner, and it turned out that he's on Atlantic. So it's kind of on California. So it's been kind of a tedious task. But we've been pursuing it diligently, and we've made a lot of progress, and we're really at the stage now where obviously we wanted to see if we had the support of the business users on 12 Mile and Southfield, because it would be fruitless to go forward without them. We have a strong support from them, and now we're taking the next step and going to the residential lot owners.
Would you consider a vote of this council as one vote?
It would be considered,
Well,
three
three votes.
lots.
I mean,
Three lots, yeah.
but we vote as a unit, not as
Right.
as individuals, because we're acting on behalf of the city, and the city owns the, okay.
Tantamount to a corporate board, that owned a lot, and they would, vote a majority would be accepted.
Frankly, I'm tossed between saying we ought to go first and we ought to go last, because it can make us a bad guy in either situation, because if it turns out to be a tie, our votes may break the tie, and we're still gonna, still makes us a bad guy.
I hear what you're saying, and
Although we're right in the middle right now.
well, and to be honest with you, it would send the owner has been working hard at this for a long time.
Yeah.
He's really trying to, and knowing that at least the city would support lifting the deed restriction, not necessarily rezoning or some development that come along, but lifting the deed restriction, so at least we now have the opportunity to start marketing this property, and having people not just kind of turning their back and saying, I'm not going through all that, would be, I think, a big lift to the marketing of this property and the redevelopment of this basically vacant parcel,
Right.
which is, we've not been able to put any use since it went down.
And if this gets approved by the 2/3, it doesn't negate what's already permissible on here. So it just adds more things to it.
Correct. And buyers in the marketplace are willing to take chances, enter into purchase agreements with conditions for rezoning and that sort of thing all the time. We see it all the time. We can't get to that stage here because we've got this deed restriction in place.
Right. I have a little history with that building, because our church had leased a space in there, and when it burned, we had been in it for a while, and it burned, so I have a little history with it.
So you're familiar with the location and everything.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Moss?
Yeah, if we were to vote to lift the restrictions, it wouldn't, and you saw an office complex development, or an office development, you would, that wouldn't prohibit you from seeking out an office development.
Not in the least bit.
This doesn't give you a charge to automatically only seek commercial.
No, I think my client is, obviously interested in redeveloping the property. Obviously, he'd like to make a profit on the property. Certainly, if an office user came along and was interested, they'd be more than happy to do that. In today's office market, particularly with small buildings like this, you're usually doing just build to suits. Nobody's building any kind of office on spec.
Yeah.
If an office user came along, I'd certainly give it serious consideration.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with listing it only because, this council has a history of very meticulously looking at developments, and we are not shy about turning them down, especially on that parcel. So with the idea that everything is going to come back to council every step of the way, this just promotes us as we're willing to work with you and help create Southfield as open for business. I don't have a problem. I haven't heard a compelling argument to not list this as restricted.
Ms. Seymour is next, and I have a question.
I mean, this is, what we're really doing here is trying to help the owner sell the property, and I think if the property is valuable for a development, I don't see the problem. I think there's something wrong with this situation, because the deed restriction is there to protect a lot of people, and a lot of people are there. And if the right development came, we'd have no problem listing that. But to do it first to help the owner do a better job of selling, there's something wrong with that. I mean, I don't think that we should be involved in that, because any good development should stand on its own, and it was justified changing that. So I don't want to make it so. I think it complicates the whole thing. I think having these restrictions in that site is a good protection for them. I'm not opposed to changing for the right thing at the right time, but just to do it in advance, I don't think that's the best way to go. I think that's being a little too, it doesn't say we're not open for business, but we certainly want good development in the city, and I think everybody knows that. People that get turned down get very angry and say, well, Southfield's not open for business because they didn't get through. And, I mean, I'm not trying to hurt the guy, but it seems to me, like you said, people will purchase things based on, getting the right contingency, I guess, is it. So, I don't see it as a hindrance to selling. I think I just don't buy that argument, but I don't think it's in our best interest to do it, or opening it at this time.
Mr. Prokop.
Yes, and could you hold that slide up again, please? And could you point out Pierce Street?
Pierce would be over here to the,
All right.
to the east.
That isn't true, then, going that way.
This is later built boulevard right here.
Okay. Commissioner, the city owns a lot east of there.
East of
But
Pierce.
that's not in Bedford too. On 12 Mile Road, we own about Pearson, near Pearson,
Oh,
12 Mile Road.
So that's-
It's not in that Bedford too. The other question I have is that, is there such a thing as taking the deed restrictions off part of the two lots? In other words, we've had two requests in for commercial development. Neighborhood opposed both, and they seem that the reason they opposed it was because of the residential that back up to that space, and they were out, so that is protected. So my question is, the lots that are part of the Harvard group, could you take restrictions off part of it? Is that feasible, or is that?
If I could even add to it, that perhaps a split of those two lots, the frontage on Southfield could potentially be listed. The piece that backs up against the residential could stay.
There's nothing in the original deed restriction from 44, which we're trying to modify, that suggests you can do half a lot. I think as a practical matter, when we came back for rezoning and a request for approval of any development, obviously, the zoning ordinance has the setback requirements, and I've certainly seen situations in this community and many other communities where there's limitations in terms of how far the building can be set back, as long as it's in compliance with front yard setbacks and that sort of thing. So I think, and I'm not trying to sidestep your question, but the deed restriction doesn't really provide for partial lifting. But I think that the issue you're addressing, which is an important issue, I'm sure particularly for these folks, would be something that would more specifically be addressed in a site plan approval process.
But if it was rezoned, and it meets all the requirements of the zoning ordinance, you could not leave any of that land, any part of those land as a protection to the residents. I mean, you just couldn't do it. I mean, you could tell them you'd like to do that, but legally you'd have a rough time persuading if they meet all the requirements. Say it was zone B2, look at the zoning ordinance, and if they meet all the side yard and setbacks and the front yard and whatever parking, then it's we have no way of protecting those people.
I understand what you're saying, and I suspect that when we come back for rezoning, in all likelihood, you're going to want to know what.
Well, the last one was storage next to the residential, and that didn't fly either. You know, the restaurant in front and storage in the back, and people didn't want the storage.
The storage would be a special use, though.
Well, it still is what they requested. You know.
Anything else?
That's when I tried to get an answer of the type of companies that he's seeking.
Well, there'll be a broker, and there's not a specific type of use other than a commercial use generally that at this point, we're looking for. And again, that use is going to come back to you.
I had a couple questions.
Sure.
Even if with, let's say council approves the lifting the deed restriction, how many more, and really you've run out of commercial lots, correct?
Well, we have 3 that we have partial approval on, that we're trying to close the gap on.
I know you said you need 28.
We need 28 total. We expect, ballpark, I think I'm going to have 18 to 20 out of the 22 office commercial lots that are there, which leaves me, at that point, needing 8 more. And so even with you, I'm still going to need 5, perhaps a half a dozen of the individual residential property owners.
Well, that's my point. So even with council's support, we still got to go back to the homeowners that abut this property and get their approval.
I need homeowners in the subdivision.
Right, exactly. I'm leaning toward approving, lifting the deed restriction, knowing that it would come back, and I want to protect the neighborhood. We had an offer for culverts on Southfield Road. That would be fine. It's a very deep lot. The frontage of the property, retail or commercial, would be very reasonable, especially given what we hope takes place, or we've approved to take place across the street on the St. Bede property. So I know that that's not the issue at hand, but I want to bring that up, that I think it's very important that council has the ability to, for special use, council has the ability to rezone. Council could also negotiate the rezoning to leave a buffer on this property. Another question I wanted to ask you, given that this is these deed restrictions are roughly 70 years old, and when you look at Southfield Road in 1944 was a dirt road with little on it. there was a dump up the street and a swimming hole. When this deed restriction, and I've seen aerial maps of Southfield Township, so there was virtually nothing there. This is a totally different world today, and when you look at Southfield Road, the majority of it is retail or commercial. So, Mr. Pesic, my question for you is, could you go to court on behalf of the property owner and say that this is an unreasonable deed restriction, because there are lots of unreasonable deed restrictions? Is that an alternative for the property owner?
We have researched that issue. Obviously, we had to present all alternatives to the client. We do believe, without giving away any client confidences, we do believe from a legal perspective that there's been what under the law is referred to as a change of circumstances that's taken place here with regard to what the purpose of the deed restrictions were when they were put into place versus what's going on today. That is not something at the moment that is on the table. It's not, I can't sit here and say to you it's eliminated, because we do believe if push came to shove, we could be successful doing that. We don't want to do that. We want this done in a voluntary, cooperative way, not just from the perspective of our client's benefit. Sure, it would be beneficial to our client to get it done without litigation, but we're not looking to start suing people who have, as a practical matter, not really involved in this thing, other than the fact that they happen to hold a vote of a lot.
Right.
But unfortunately, that's, if you go that route, that's what you have to do.
I wasn't suggesting that, but just for clarity, this is a route that you could take, and it would seem to me, given the change of the profound changes on Southfield Road in 70 years, that you probably could prevail. I appreciate the route that you're taking, and going to each property owner, doing it that way than going through the court. It also gives, I would imagine, the next step would be in discussing this with the property owners, perhaps some guarantees of what you would do with the property if you could broaden the commercial uses. And I think that just from past history here with the neighborhood, I think the neighborhood would be interested in that, weighing in on this. Are there any other comments or questions from council? I am going to call on Mr. Billy Parrish, who's contacted me earlier about making some comments on behalf of the neighborhood. Mr. Parrish?
Thank you.
Please go to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Billy Parrish. My address is 17550 Edwards Avenue. My property is the property just over the wall from Harvard Plaza. But I'm not here just speaking for myself. I'm often called upon by my neighbors to come and represent their voice. Today I went out and canvassed all of the residents within that subdivision. And many of them were not at home, so I couldn't talk to them, but I did talk to 6 different households, and I've got their views. But before I bring that up, I'm concerned, and by the way, I understand that there's a need for something to happen with that property. And I understand that the deed restriction restricted to office or residential. In fact, at one point, I think when the Agree Realty folks came out and talked with us, they said it was office, medical, residential. And the members of the community that met with Agree Realty back, I think in February, pointed out that we were concerned about changing it to more commercial than office, medical, or residential, and we suggested they seek out maybe some medical facility options. We never heard back from them. But it's a slippery slope that I think that we're sliding down in this discussion right now, because I'm concerned that if council agrees to vote the 3 lots, that one, you're setting a precedent that's never been done before. Number 2, you certainly will be adding to the count that becomes overwhelming in terms of the approval for changing the deed restriction. And so it sends a bad message to the community, I think, for council to, at this stage, be the lead on the residential vote. The residents that I've talked to in the past, when we met with agreeability, were all except for one household opposed to the idea of changing the deed. Today I talked to 6 households, and of the 6, one of them was probably one of those conflicts where the wife thinks that she would be opposed to it and the husband's all for it. So that would be the one family that was all for it, and the other 5 were saying, whoa, wait a minute, we've been here before. Now, having said that, let me point out why those folks are concerned and why I say it's a slippery slope. The deed restriction is there to protect the residential area. And while it has changed in terms of the composition of that strip along Southfield Road, from when it was dirt road to now being very commercial. In fact, one of my concerns is that it looks like there's a move to make Southfield Road look like Telegraph Road. But the difference is that the houses and residential areas are much closer along Southfield Road than they are behind Telegraph Road. So, I don't think it's a good thing for the community to have major development coming so close to the residential area. But the problem in particular with Edwards Street is, and I've said this many times before, so maybe you heard this before, is that there's only one street that connects Greenfield Road and Southfield Road other than 12 Mile Road and 13 Mile Road. So as a result, there's a lot of traffic that comes along a residential street called Edwards Avenue. And so that deed restriction protects the residents that go back not only in Bedford's Villa number 2, but that entire section going back east towards Greenfield Road and spreading north and south of Edwards Street. And so when you start saying that we want to reduce the deed restriction and allow more commercial development, we're going down that slope that says, hey, we're going to create a situation that will be destroying the integrity of the neighborhood, the ability of the folks in the community to enjoy their property, the comfort of being able to walk out in the evening and walk the dog or the kids playing in the front yard. There's no sidewalk, but we're going to have that increased traffic coming through there, which makes it a danger. And so there are a lot of concerns that the residents have about changing that deed because it leads to other things that will adversely impact our ability to enjoy our property. So, I know that presents a problem, but I think for council to decide to vote on the 3 lots now would send the wrong message, and it would also, based on the numbers that I heard Mr. Hesse say, it would shift the balance there. And do you guys want to be the ones that shift the balance as residential versus commercial? I don't think that's a good thing to do. So, we don't have any idea what the planned use is, we heard that, but if we change it by loosening the deed, that creates other problems. And I heard the President say that all of this will come back to the council again. But here's a question. Does council approving those 3 lots set the stage for a fast track towards rezoning? Which I think it does. And that's the question that I ask. It certainly at this stage, we're hearing that it only will allow the move ahead of a change in the restriction, and we gotta come back and do these things. But to me, I think that sends a message that there's a fast track going on here. And in fact, the expectation from Harvard Class would be that this would be fast tracked through the council as a result of council supporting at this stage. So I think we're going down a slippery slope. And I don't know if well, I know that it was said that the residents will be notified later. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm the voice here today, and there are not many others up here voicing my same concern. And so, but I have communicated to them. And I think it's premature to make a decision like that at this stage on the council's part. And I would recommend that the council refrain from taking a vote to support for those 3 lots that you have under your control. Because those lots represent the public, not just the council. And it represents that community. And so you're taking a vote that represents the public and the community, and it's not a good thing to do.
All right, thank you, Mr. Parrish. Mr. McCarthy?
Yeah, I was looking at that plan and thinking through it, and listening to residents speak. Most of the votes we have are from non-residents. And so, I mean, I personally feel that we're here to protect both sides, but basically to protect the residents. We haven't passed, and I don't see any reason why we're not doing that now.
I think we have 3 choices here. We can deny, we can approve, or we can withhold or postpone. Certainly we could postpone until after the property owner, Mr. Pesic, petition the rest of the neighborhood and get that feedback from the neighborhood. With no disrespect to Mr. Parrish, I think it would be only fair that the petitioner speak directly to the residents to bring it from his or her perspective, and not one neighbor's filter. And again, that's no disrespect, but the man should be able to make his own case with the neighbors, is really what I'm saying. So I'm looking for a motion. We again approve, deny, or withhold, postpone any action on this. And actually, Ms. Attorney, we can't take a vote.
See whether it was consensus. That was the intent, right?
Right. So, yes.
I'd like to move that I would like to state that I would like to have this postponed until the residents, I hear them speak towards this thing. And secondly, I'd like to comment though that there could be the possibility that all 3 actions take, we can take at the same time, meaning, approval of removing the deed restrictions, a zoning and a site plan. And I think that is a possibility where I know that it's harder to maybe get a client to purchase the lot, but if it comes in as a good project, I'm sure that it would weigh heavily favored by the council. I'm not speaking for council, but, I think that with everything going on with the same deeds piece, that it's becoming more and more commercial, and you're going to see some good projects coming in.
Okay, I'm going to weigh, I'm keeping score here, so I'm putting you in a box called withhold or postpone.
Postpone.
Mr. Lance?
I would vote to deny.
Okay. Ms. Seymour?
I would vote to deny.
Mr. Moss?
Ultimately I would support it. I can understand now, listening to Mr. Percassi say that you know, all the developments that, or all the parcels that have approved it so far have not been residential. I'd like to see more of an effort to reach out to residential. Ultimately, if we end up being the last three, it does the same thing than being the middle three. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, but I'll be in the same box as Mr. Fracassi.
Okay. Mr. Frazier?
After having thought about it, and I made that comment of, you know, it's just as bad being the last three as it is to be the middle three. Because you have three counts, or three votes. Mr. Fracassi does make a good point that most of them are non-residents that have already voted. Our 3 votes would be not involved, because we're way over on the backside. So whatever happens in that particular location wouldn't really impact our piece of it, because we're you know, we're half a mile away from there. So I think we need to get a feel for the residents, what the residents really want, and so I'm going to jump in the box with the other 2.
Okay. And I also will go to the poll or poll count at this point. Yes.
I just want to mention something in clarification. Someone said, and I don't know who it was here, but said that this is just a resident. I thought Mr. Parrish, from past experience with the Golden Corral, I thought Mr. Parrish either was the head of that association or a member of that board, so I think before then.
What I was saying was, Mr. Parrish told us tonight he only spoke to 6 people in
Right,
favor.
because he apparently.
And I, again, no disrespect to Mr. Parrish, I recognize that people do talk to him regularly, and he follows us, he's involved. But it would be, I think, appropriate for the owner of the property to give his own case rather than someone else speaking for him.
I do too, but I think that they just found out about it like a day. We had a day.
I understand that.
So that, that has something to do with people not being housing.
Okay,
From what I've
so
heard.
we have for consent to postpone until the time.
We did that to a day certain, so that.
Well, it's
It'll depend.
Yeah, we have to wait till,
Resolve.
Mr. Patrick, you want to come back up?
Sure.
I can't give you a date when we come back, because that works quite a bit. I don't know, I can't control how long it takes people to respond to requests, and they say we're chasing down people in California, and obviously from our perspective would be that, so when we come back as expeditiously as possible, because it's in our best interest, obviously, to get this resolved as soon as possible. So, the only thing I would like to mention is we're not affiliated with the Agree Realty Company. They were an entity that was interested in the property. They walked away because of restriction, and that's indicative of the ongoing problem we've had. The restriction, not the rezoning, which the council still has complete control of, but the zone restriction is really what's keeping this property from.
But the restriction has to be lifted before we can do any rezoning anyhow.
Right, and that's why, by way of example, it would not be presented as a package, because no one will come forward with a development proposal without the restriction. That's not something.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're going to move on to the appointment of a deputy city attorney. I think 2 months ago, council authorized the filling of this position. So, Ms. Ward, I guess it's yours.
Thank you. Yes, as council is aware, back in late July, you did approve my hiring a deputy city attorney. Subsequent to that, the Human Resources Department did solicit applications, resumes. I think it was a pretty inclusive type of process. We advertised in the Michigan Bar Journal, the Municipal League, Oakland County Bar, the Stryker Bar, so I think that we did outreach to really let people know that this position was open. Following that, we had about 55 different applications, and we had interviews that were undertaken a few weeks back. Chief Hawkins was kind enough to sit in on that interview panel, along with Lori Siskin and myself. And I'm pleased tonight to present Nita Murray Greer for confirmation to this body for Deputy City Attorney. Nita has in excess of 25 years as a licensed attorney in the state of Michigan. In fact, worked for the City Attorney's Office back about 10 years ago or so. Jeff Barrett hired her. She did a lot of labor and employment for us at the time, and that's what she's kind of focused on even when she left our office. She's done a lot of labor employment as well as other municipal type work, and she would be an extreme benefit to me at this point. I can unload a lot of the employment type work and give it to her, share team it. But obviously she would be a real benefit to obviously our office as well as the city. So with that, she is here tonight, and this position is within the management group grade S position, and so that's where we're slotting her. And we would establish with HR and administrator, we are recommending a salary of $102,500 with a 5% increase upon 6 months completion of the first introductory period.
I forgot to ask you whether how we're going to proceed with this as far as we be doing a Rule 10?
What I would like is,
And then
so,
introduce?
right, if we could do a Rule 10 tonight and
So
actually
we get her
appoint
going,
her,
yeah.
and then on the 25th, the regular, we bring her back for
Right.
introduction, formal
Right.
introduction.
Yeah. That's what I thought. Perhaps I could have the nominee come to the podium if you'd like to say a few words. And then we'll entertain either questions or a motion.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you. I do look forward to returning to the city. I bring a wealth of experience. Certainly I've worked with Sue and most of you all in the capacity as an assistant city attorney. I'm ready and I'm willing and I'm just eager to get started. I know there's a lot of work to be done and I'm ready to do it.
Any questions from council?
I do have one question. Where in the range does 102 come?
Can I defer? I believe that
It's about,
it goes up to 115.
well, actually goes up to 119.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay, 119.
So
You
range
need
is
to better
88 to
man.
119.
102 is halfway.
Well, it starts at like 90?
88
88.
to 119.
88 to 119.
Oh, okay. Oh,
That
okay.
is the 5%. Any other, Mr. Moss?
I would move a Rule 10.
All right.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Moss, supported by Mr. Frazier. All those in
Oh.
favor of the Rule 10, need Jack, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right. Then we need another motion.
I move that we approve the appointment of Nita Murray Greer as
Deputy.
deputy city attorney.
Okay. And,
Support.
Supported by Mr. Frazier. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So, in 2 weeks, we'll have you back to do it publicly, although it'll really just be a presentation, under presentation. But to announce it at a televised meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just to be able to say, the effective date she will start is on Monday, the 18th. That's when she's available to start, and that's when we'll let her start.
Well, welcome.
Thank
back.
you. Thank you
I
all
will say
very much. I look
welcome
forward to working with you.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay, And Mr. Attorney, we have, another item.
Taking all your time tonight, but,
Get out of here.
this item is a reclassification request to council. It pertains to Dawn King, who is an assistant city attorney with the city. She's been with us for approximately 10 years. She is currently classified as an assistant city attorney 1 and has been in that capacity since she was hired. Initially, she did primarily the district court prosecution, but as our numbers in the city attorney's office have dwindled, we've kind of reached out to Dawn more and more to take on additional responsibilities. I think at this point, and with the number of years that she's now worked for us, that she has clearly, proceeded on to the expertise and the knowledge and the responsibilities of an assistant city attorney 2, and therefore I'm asking council to approve a reclassification of her from an assistant city attorney 1 to assistant city attorney 2. Again, working with the Human Resources Department, we have looked at the salary range. This one would be, the recommendation is for a salary range at approximately 75% of the grade M for the assistant city attorney 2, which is a salary of $72,588. We're also asking that it be retroactive to January 1st of this year, and that request is based on the fact that obviously with Jack's death and his absence from the office occurring even a year before that, that Dawn really had stepped up and as of January 1st was really performing a lot of these duties, and so out of some sense of fairness, we're asking that it be retroactive to that date.
And we also, it was parallel to what we did.
And that's also true. Mine was made retroactive to that date as well.
All right. Is there any discussion from council on this?
And by the way, Dawn is here also tonight.
Dawn, why don't you stand up so everybody can, a lot of times you're hiding unless you see in court.
Yes, that is where I'm at, predominantly during the week, but as Bruce stated, I have been willing to do the other duties that come along with being assistant city attorney. I'm enjoying it. It's a glorious dream when I think back to being in law school and then coming here, doing the district court prosecutions, but also know that I'm working for a municipality, and that just entails so much more that I'm clearly experiencing being a lawyer, an attorney, a counselor, an advisor, and so I really enjoy it. I look forward to just getting even more experience.
When I think of you, I think of a good soldier, that, you've worked hard, behind the scenes, because always the city attorney is the person in the spotlight, but I certainly know that you've been there, working. And just speaking for myself, I always think it's great to see a person grow in their job, and be able to take on new duties, so I think that's something we should be about, this sounds exciting for you, and rewarding. Mr. Fraser.
It's not a question to you, but to your boss.
Yes?
Can you tell me what the difference is between the 1 and the 2? What kind of cases make the difference?
It's not necessarily cases, Mr. Fraser. It's basically that you get into another classification because you're exercising more independent judgment. So, for example, when Dawn first started as an assistant city attorney 1, there would have been much more interaction between Dawn and, say, Jack or myself or some of the other more experienced attorneys in terms of her cases, what fees, motions she should file. So that would have been initially, and she's moved on beyond that now. I mean, I have very little communication with Dawn in terms of the court cases, because she's established that expertise now that she really doesn't need any real guidance on that. She's good on that. She knows what motions to file. She knows what kind of the parameters are for a plea agreement. So where we're going now with Dawn is that now she's branching out, and so she's doing more of the FOIA, evaluating them and responding to them. She's working a lot more with the police department than she ever did. She's working with other departments. She's working much more extensively with the building department. So all of those things are just a reflection of moving into another category than where she was when she first started. It's just a lot more experience that she has, and it's a lot more independent judgment and discretion that she now exhibit, because she doesn't need that kind of day-to-day supervision that maybe when the first day she started.
Now, and I know you say it's not really the cases, but as a one, would she have handled a felony case?
We don't do felonies.
Well, I mean, don't you?
We
You don't have,
All we do are the misdemeanor prosecutions.
you don't have other hearings or?
No,
You don't
no, I mean, the
go
court
from a-
does, but we don't.
Oh, okay.
The court does, but we only prosecute our ordinance violations. Any felonies are done by the county prosecutor,
Okay. All right,
so.
thanks.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a rule 10.
So move.
Been moved
Support.
and supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then, main motion?
I move that we reclassify Dawn King to a assistant city attorney 2.
Support.
Been moved by Mr. Frazier, supported by Mr.
I want to add to that, with her salary
Retroactive.
retroactive to January 1st.
Moved by Mr. Frazier, supported by Mr. Moss. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Councilman.
Okay, we're moving on to item 6, which is the discussion of the holiday tree lighting celebration. Mr. Shred, you're gonna kick that off?
Yes. It's suggested that we take a look at our plans for 2014 and 2015 with regard to tree lighting for a couple of reasons. Number one is in 2014, we are going to be under heavy construction, and it is thought that the best thing to do there might be to just cut back from the 2 tree lightings that we are going to have this year, the traditional, to one at the Berg. And then the recommendation is to consider bringing it back in 2015 to, of course, our municipal complex, as well as our newly recreated Evergreen Road, get the business community involved and really put some more excitement into the celebration. So those are what I would consider on the table for discussion or recommended to be discussed. And in particular for 2014, we need to make a decision because we want to put the calendar in order.
Is there any question or comment from council?
Kind of part of this, I think we should move ahead.
We need a consensus on this, so I think it's pretty clear. We'll start this way, Mr. Frazier.
Oh, just a yes?
Yes.
No, yes.
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 Yeah.
Okay, yes. All right, so you have your,
That was easy. I don't think we want to tax you too much tonight. Appreciate that.
we also have, come on up, Rabbi. We also have the menorah lighting, and once again, if you would state your name and address for the record.
My name is Mendel Stein. I live at 22905 Congressman Drive in Southfield. I'm very happy to be standing here again. I'm sort of slipping in under the holiday tree discussion. And I wanted to say that I'm very excited to have a Hanukkah celebration again. So we're doing it the last 2 years, and I'd be happy to do it again this year. The date I'm looking at is 2 weeks from tomorrow, November 27th, at 5:30 p.m. The reason why I'm recommending that date is because, first of all, the holiday Hanukkah starts that night, so it's always good to be ahead of the game right at the beginning, not at the end. It's a 8-day holiday. Secondly, we always enjoy bringing our students from the school that I work for, the Leasing Yeshiva in Oak Park, and they add a lot of lights to the celebration for those who've been there. And they are going home for the weekend. in honor of the holidays, so that works out to be the best day when they're here. We have the lights. It'll be dark already since we changed the hour, and we're looking forward to bringing light into the darkness. So I just wanted to invite everybody and make sure everyone's okay with that. There's no other problems, and hope to be able to continue doing it in the years to come. So Wednesday.
Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and that's because Hanukkah is very early this year.
Correct. Because of the Hebrew calendar, so every year we go about 10 days different of the general calendar. So every third year we add a month. Now this year being the last year before we add a month, so we're sort of like a month behind. Next year we're going to be about a month ahead. So Ms. Banks, I'm wondering if you could make sure that that's included on the weekly calendar. And help me here, it's on the tip of my tongue. The dance we do is the hookah?
Hora.
The hora.
The hora.
Sorry.
You want it this guy?
No, that was close.
No more attorney.
The hora. Those of us, I know Mr. Percassi, Mr. Lance, Mr. Moss and I were there last year. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, it's cold.
It was cold.
So when you won't feel the cold air. If you come and you join the dance, you will not feel the cold air.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
We've got that on the hora. We've got that on the on the calendar. Okay, then next we move on to the election of officers for council president, council president pro tem for 2013-14. We'll entertain nominations for council president.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Sylvia Jordan for president.
I'll support it.
Do you want other nominations?
Yeah.
I would nominate Kenton Cyrus.
I support that.
Okay. Does Ms. Jordan's nomination mean that she's going to attend meetings more regularly and also city events?
Well, she's agreed to stand for this position, so I would assume that,
Ms. Banks, can we have a ballot for that? Oh, is there any other nominations? Hearing none, then. You want to vote?
Okay, we've got Joan Seymour voting for Sylvia Jordan, Sid Lance for Sylvia Jordan, Byron Frazier for Ken Siver, Ken Siver for Ken Siver, Jeremy Moss for Ken Siver, and Donald Percassi for Sylvia Jordan. So we have a tie.
All right. Then we'll take nominations for council president pro tem.
Mr. President, I nominate John Percassi as president pro tem.
As president,
Yes,
and then Jeremy Moss for pro tem.
and support that.
say the Mills.
They're holding out for
Are there any other nominations?
Just one?
just one thing.
No, I had,
Oh,
I thought it was,
Oh, this is Chicago.
okay, we've got, Ken Cyber for Jeremy Moss, Myron Frazier for Jeremy Moss, Joan Seymour for Donald for Cassie, Jeremy Moss for Jeremy Moss, Sid Lance for Donald for Cassie, and Donald for Cassie for Donald for Cassie. We have a typo. Congratulations.
This is one of the reasons that I am concerned. This is the second time when we've had what I consider a fairly critical vote that Sylvie George has not been here. We had to delay the vote a week or so ago, or our last meeting, because she was in Atlanta being filmed for a reality show.
for her daughter.
Doesn't matter, she wasn't here. But, that's my concern. I don't have anything against Sylvia, except she doesn't show up to meetings all the time.
I've seen the event.
Yeah.
She's out of town today.
Of course.
No, no, she is. She was here to do this.
Is there anything else to, come before the council this evening?
I have one item, just, some information. I came down 9 Mile Road, west, just before I got to Woodward, and there was an apartment complex, somebody should go that direction, it's very similar to what is planned for the Jonah property, it's got the wings, and it looks like almost you took a picture of it. Yes, suggestion, look at it.
Woodward and what?
Woodward, 9 Mile, to the
Okay.
east of Woodward Avenue.
Okay.
Is there anything else to come before the, council? Yeah. We have, communications, Pamela Gerald. She's not in attendance. For the record, Ms. Banks, please note that, Ms. Gerald, was called for communications and she's not, present. Anything else to come before the, good of the body?
Does anybody want me to say anything special at the National League of Cities? No.
No, on that side, no.
Yeah.
All right, if not, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you.